Beginners make so many mistakes in the gym, and so did I when I was a beginner. And that is why 7 or so years later, I'd like to tell you what I would do differently if I had to start again. Welcome back to Hypertrophy Academy. My name's Declan, and this is going to be a quick 5-minute video going over everything that I would do if I had to start again right now. Let's jump straight into nutrition, because that is where I really went wrong. When I started, I was a decently lean 67 kilos at about 6'2", and the heaviest I've ever been was 112 kilos at about 6'3", which is my full size now. That's about 40 kilos. And between those weights, I made a lot of mistakes. The number one mistake being bulking too fast. As a younger guy, very attached to my body weight and bulking, I thought if I just gained weight faster, I would grow muscle quicker. And of course, that is not how that works, especially when your training's not good. So if I had to go back, I would definitely bulk slower, and I would have done a cut at 80 kilos, another cut at 90 kilos, another at 100, 110, etc. Between 67 or 68 and 112, even 114 at one point, I believe, I did not do a cut. So I was fat. So I ended up being super overweight with no idea how to do a cut, wishing that I didn't do a mega bulk. So my number one nutrition tip is don't do a huge 3 or 4 year bulk. Do slight surpluses with a cut every 6 or 12 months, depending on how big you are. The second part of nutrition that is super important that I had no regard for is micronutrients. These will dictate how we feel. So to cover our micronutrients, we're going to do two things without getting too specific. The first one is have some variety in our diet, but not too much. If we have no variety, we will definitely miss things. If we have constant variety, we will get everything, but probably not enough and not for long enough. So we want to have some variety. I would recommend, honestly, having a training day plan and a non-training day plan. Maybe you have completely different foods on those days, and if you have good enough variety and nutrition sense, you'll probably get everything. Obviously, different colored vegetables, different colored fruits are a very, very easy rule. So you want to eat a few colors of each day, and you'll probably get most of the things that you need. My go-tos now for fruit is frozen berries in my cream of rice, in my shakes, in my yogurt, and that pretty much ticks off my fruit for the day. Yes, I could have a banana, an orange, something like that, but I don't really. And yes, I could probably do a little bit better, but that's very sustainable for me and very enjoyable. And of course, we're only going to do things for a long period of time that we enjoy. Vegetables, on the other hand, is where I really like to mix it up. I'll have big vegetable salads. I'll do things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, spinach, mushroom. All of those foods that you didn't like when you were 10 are actually really yum if you do them properly, and very, very beneficial for your health. So lots of colors of fruit and vegetables. Maybe we have a training day plan and a non-training day plan. And if you're bulking or cutting, what you can do is put the calories up on training days and the calories down on non-training days. And if you're interested in doing that, Google carb cycling, because that is actually pretty useful. Now, I don't want to go too in-depth into nutrition because I'm not your coach. I don't know what you need. And this is supposed to be a 5 to 10 minute video. So in terms of nutrition, I would have done a much, much slower and smaller bulk, alternating between maintenance, cutting, and bulking over the course of 4 or 5 years instead of doing a 3-year bulk and getting fat as fuck. With nutrition, I would definitely go back in time, look after my health, and get some more micronutrients, smashing the fruit, smashing the vegetables, maybe alternating training days and non-training days so I didn't get bored of food, which I did very, very often, which actually led to some disordered eating type behaviors, but I won't go into that. So those are my two big pillars for nutrition. If you do that, you'll be in a really, really good spot. And when you can afford it, I highly recommend you get a nutrition coach. I would even go as far as to say that for some people, it is more beneficial to get a nutrition coach than it is to get a training coach. If you're lucky, your coach will do both, like we do at Hypertrophy Academy. You can apply through the link in my bio. But nonetheless, get a coach when you can. So when it comes to training, what would I do differently? Well, I would go to the gym a little less. I used to go 5, 6, 7 days a week. I would definitely go 4 or 5 times. If I went 4 times, I'd do upper lower. And if I went 5 times, I would do probably an push pull legs upper lower type program. Alternatively, something that you could do is an upper lower repeat program or a full body every other day program. These programs might be slightly better for hypertrophy depending on how they're done, but you can actually get in the gym more often. Now, that doesn't necessarily cause more hypertrophy, but what it does cause for you guys who are very new is practice. And we all know that practice makes perfect. So if you are having trouble with a movement, instead of doing it once a week, do it every second day in a full body program, or every 3 or 4 days in an upper lower rest repeat program. If you're not familiar with those splits are, an upper lower rest repeat program is you do upper lower rest, and you continue on with that. Now, this is different to just a normal upper lower program, because with this program, every day your days are going to change because it runs over a 4-day cycle, or 5-day cycle rather, which obviously doesn't fit into a 7-day calendar period. Full body every other day is exactly how it sounds. You do a full body session, rest, full body session. Now, by doing this, you will be in the gym more often, practicing those movements more often. If you get coordinated faster, you might actually make better progress. So if you're new, you sort of know about science-based TikTok, you might actually benefit from going more often if you manage your recovery, but beginners usually can't be trusted with those things. So you could check that stuff out, see if you're interested in doing that, but I would recommend going 4 or 5 days a week, doing 2 to 3 sets per exercise. When you go into the gym in your first year, I would aim to take almost every single set to failure, because you're super uncoordinated and you don't know how to train hard. By doing every set to failure or close to it, you will get motor unit recruitment gains faster and coordination gains faster, which will in turn lead to you getting bigger, faster, and stronger faster. So if you're in your first year, don't even worry about leaving reps in reserve, what RPE is. Just train pretty much as hard as you can for about a year. Then maybe learn what reps in reserve is, start leaving one here and there. But for the most part, if you're a beginner, train very, very hard. I never worried about how hard I trained. We did everything to failure, and I am so thankful for that, because I got strong quite quickly because I was consistently worried about training to failure. And maybe it wasn't the best for my growth overall, but I trained hard really often, which made me good at training hard. And so when I did start to manage my fatigue a little better, I already knew how to train hard, if that makes sense. And so when I did eventually get past that first, year or two and start thinking a little bit about the way I was training, I already knew how to train hard. I'd already developed that skill. And so that came with me, which was really, really helpful. But that is to say, don't worry too much about leaving reps in reserve. Just train as hard as you can safely for the first year or so. Now, that all might sound very simple. I'm recommending you go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, do 2 or 3 sets per exercise, train hard, eat your veggies, and don't bulk for too long. But that is actually important advice, and a lot of people don't hear that stuff. Just before I recorded this video, I opened up my phone to a 17 or 18-year-old with some of the worst steroid acne I've ever seen. And I just think that this is obvious stuff until it's not. Until someone is misinformed enough to do gear at 18 and potentially, run themselves into the ground before they're 30. And so every time I think that beginners know things about the gym, I am pleasantly surprised or unpleasantly surprised by the most absurd thing I've ever seen on TikTok or Instagram Reels. And so apparently beginners need to know this stuff. So that is what I would do if I could talk to my past self, or if I had to start again. I would just do those things until I was smart enough and well-trained enough to take it to the next level. If you took that advice for 2 years, the advice I just gave you, and you did that for 2 years straight, there's not much else you'd need. Of course, I would encourage you to learn along the way, pay attention to some of my other content, maybe upskill, learn a little bit more about training, whatever. But for the most part, that's good advice for 2 years. Take it, train hard, enjoy yourself, eat your fruit and veggies, don't get fat. Hope you enjoyed that quick video. Hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.